First contact gone wrong. The sleek silver ship of the Kralaxians hovered silently above the open field. Inside, Commander Vex peered through the viewscreen at the small human delegation waiting below. His thin gray fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted his breathing apparatus. "Are we certain these creatures are safe?" Vex asked his science officer. "Our scans show they have dense muscle structure and a thick skeletal system. They evolved on a high-gravity planet with numerous predators," Science Officer Melix replied. "But they appear peaceful." The Kralaxians had traveled across 17 star systems before discovering Earth. Their species was intellectually advanced, but physically delicate. They stood barely 4 feet tall with slender limbs and large craniums. Their homeworld had gentle gravity and few threats, which had allowed their minds to develop while their bodies remained fragile. A hatch opened beneath the ship, and a platform lowered carrying Vex, Melix, and 4 security officers. Each carried a neural disruptor, standard equipment for meeting unknown species. The human delegation consisted of 5 individuals. Their leader stepped forward, a broad-shouldered man with a friendly smile. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Jack Murphy, representing the United Nations," he said warmly. The translator device on Vex's chest converted the sounds to Kralaxian language. Vex nodded his large head cautiously. "We come in peace and scientific curiosity," Vex responded. Jack smiled wider and suddenly extended his hand forward. The Kralaxians had not been briefed on human handshakes. To their eyes, a large, powerful creature was suddenly thrusting a limb toward them, a limb that could easily crush their delicate bones. "Weapon!" shouted a security officer, misinterpreting the gesture. 3 neural disruptors fired simultaneously. Crackling energy struck Jack in the chest. He staggered backward, his face showing surprise and pain. The other humans shouted and backed away. In Kralaxian physiology, such a blast would cause total nervous system shutdown. They expected the human to collapse. Instead, Jack winced, clutched his chest, and then did something that terrified the aliens. He laughed. "Whoa, that stings," Jack said, straightening up. "I think we've had a misunderstanding. Let's start over." He began walking toward them again, hands still extended. "It's still functioning," Melix whispered in horror. "Our weapons had no effect." Panicking, all 6 Kralaxians fired their weapons. Energy bolts hit Jack multiple times. He fell to one knee, grimacing. The other humans were shouting now, some reaching inside their jackets. The Kralaxians assumed they were drawing weapons. "Return to the ship," Vex ordered. "Quickly." But before retreating, Vex watched in disbelief as Jack Murphy pushed himself back to his feet. Blood trickled from his nose. His suit was scorched, but he was still conscious, still moving. "Wait," Jack called out, voice strained but determined. "We can work this out." The Kralaxians scrambled back onto their platform, raising it quickly into their ship. As the hatch closed, they saw Jack still standing, supported by his colleagues but alive and conscious after absorbing energy that would have killed any Kralaxian instantly. Inside the ship, the crew was in chaos. "Set course away from this planet," Vex ordered, his voice shaking. "Maximum speed." "What are they?" Melix asked, checking the scanner readings again. "I don't know," Vex replied. "But we shot one directly, multiple times, and he just laughed and kept coming." As their ship accelerated into the atmosphere, the Kralaxians sent an urgent message to their homeworld. "First contact established with species designated human. Caution advised. They appear impervious to our weapons. They are dangerous beyond measure." Back on Earth, Jack Murphy sat in an ambulance as medics treated his burns. "What happened out there?" asked his colleague. Jack winced as antiseptic touched his wound. "I think," he said slowly, "I scared them by trying to shake hands. Cultural misunderstanding. But we need to find them again. Explain things before this gets worse." The Kralaxian ship raced through the darkness of space, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and Earth. Commander Vex called an emergency meeting in the ship's central chamber. "What we encountered cannot be natural," Vex said, pacing nervously. His thin limbs trembled with each step. "No species should withstand multiple neural disruptor blasts." Science Officer Melix projected the recorded footage of Jack Murphy rising after being shot. The assembled crew watched in silence as the human laughed off weapons that would instantly paralyze any Kralaxian. "I've analyzed the readings," Melix said. "Humans have dense cellular structures and an advanced nervous system that can root around damage. What's more, they appear to process pain differently than we do." "Are they some kind of military experiment?" asked Security Chief Lox. "No," Melix replied. "Our scans show they evolved this way naturally. Their homeworld has higher gravity, dangerous predators, and extreme weather. Their bodies adapted accordingly." High Command ordered a stealth observation mission. 3 small scout ships returned to Earth orbit, cloaked from detection. For 2 weeks, they monitored human communications and secretly recorded daily life. The Kralaxian Council reviewed the findings with growing concern. "They routinely injure themselves and continue functioning," reported observer Nix. "They have medical procedures where they cut open their bodies while conscious. They consume substances that would poison us for pleasure. Some deliberately harm themselves through activities they call sports or exercise." The council chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. "Most disturbing," Nix continued, "is their military training. Soldiers deliberately expose themselves to pain to build tolerance. They can function despite injuries that would be fatal to us." Meanwhile on Earth, Dr. Lisa Coleman studied the data from the failed first contact. As the leading xenobiologist at NASA, she was tasked with understanding the Kralaxian reaction. "Their physiology must be fundamentally different from ours," she explained to General Frank Harris in her lab. "Based on the limited scans we got from their ship, I believe they evolved on a low-gravity world with minimal environmental threats." She pulled up a holographic model of a Kralaxian body. "Look at this skeletal structure, lightweight and fragile. Their nervous system appears incredibly sensitive. What we consider minor pain might be unbearable to them." "So when they shot Jack and he didn't drop dead," General Harris began, "they probably thought he was some kind of super soldier or monster," Lisa finished. "In their eyes, he should have been incapacitated or dead. Instead, he laughed it off and kept coming toward them." "We need to reestablish contact," Harris said, "before they decide we're invincible killing machines and take more drastic measures." Lisa nodded. "I'm working on a communication package that explains human physiology in terms they might understand. We need to show them we're not invulnerable, just different." Back on the Kralaxian homeworld, military scientists worked frantically to develop weapons effective against humans. The High Council debated whether to classify Earth as a quarantine zone or a potential threat requiring preemptive action. Young Science Officer Zix, recently assigned to the research team, reviewed the observation footage with growing fascination rather than fear. "We're approaching this wrong," Zix told his superior. "These humans aren't invulnerable. Look here," he pointed to footage of a human hospital. "They heal each other. They feel pain. They die. They're just stronger than us with higher tolerance." His superior shook her head. "The council has already decided humans are dangerous. First contact proved that." "But what if it was just a misunderstanding?" Zix pressed. "What if they're as confused by our reaction as we are by their resilience?" Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the facility. "Motion detected in Sector 4, announced the automated system, unidentified biological entity. Security footage showed a single human walking calmly through the research center. Somehow, Jack Murphy had found his way to the Kralaxian homeworld. The alarm was a false reading. The Kralaxian security system had mistaken a shadow for a human intruder, but the damage was done. Panic spread through the research facility as scientists imagined invulnerable humans infiltrating their world. "This proves my point," said Chief Military Advisor Draz to the High Council. "We must take defensive action immediately." His thin gray hand slammed on the table, though the impact barely made a sound. The Council voted to adopt limited engagement protocols with Earth. They would avoid direct contact while developing countermeasures against human physiology. "Our standard weapons are ineffective," Draz explained. "We need something that targets their unique biological structure." Scientists worked around the clock to create weapons that could stop humans. They developed high-intensity sonic disruptors that could rupture human eardrums and cause disorientation. They engineered chemical compounds designed to trigger human respiratory distress. Each weapon was carefully calibrated to incapacitate without killing. The Kralaxians were not warmongers, just frightened. "These defensive measures will protect our people if humans attempt direct contact again," Draz assured the Council. Back on Earth, Jack Murphy had recovered from his injuries and was working with international authorities to understand what had happened. "I reached out to shake hands," Jack explained to the UN Security Council. "It must have seemed threatening to them. Their reaction was based on fear, not aggression." Dr. Lisa Coleman nodded as she stood to address the Council. "Kralaxian physiology appears extremely fragile compared to humans. What we consider a minor injury might be catastrophic for them." The Council was shown medical scans taken during the encounter. "Look at their bone density." Lisa pointed to the holographic display. "A human child could break their limbs with an enthusiastic hug. And their pain receptors appear to be significantly more sensitive than ours." Navy Lieutenant Peter Gonzalez was assigned to work with Dr. Coleman to establish new contact protocols. "We need to move slowly, keep our hands visible, and avoid sudden movements," Peter suggested. "Like approaching a frightened animal." "They're not animals," Lisa corrected. "They're an advanced species with technology beyond ours. They're just physically different." The team worked to create messages broadcasted toward the Kralaxian observation ships they suspected were monitoring Earth. The messages explained human physiology and emphasized peaceful intentions. "We apologize for the misunderstanding during our first meeting," Jack recorded for the transmission. "Humans mean no harm to your people. Our physical resilience is natural to us, not a weapon against you." The Kralaxians received these messages but remained skeptical. "It could be deception," Draz warned the Council. "They may want us to lower our guard." Young scientist Zix disagreed. "The data supports their claims. Humans have evolved different pain responses and healing abilities because of their environment. What appears as invulnerability to us is normal for them." "Even if true," Draz countered, "a species that can withstand such damage poses an inherent threat. Their persistence looks like aggression to our people." To demonstrate his point, Draz showed footage of human activities. Boxers absorbing punches, soldiers continuing missions despite injuries, surgeons cutting into conscious patients, children falling and immediately getting up again. "Imagine these beings pursuing you," Draz said. "No matter what you do, they keep coming." The Council shuddered at the images. Meanwhile, Earth governments debated how to proceed. Some advocated avoiding further contact until more was understood about Kralaxian psychology. Others worried that silence might be interpreted as hostility. "We need to show them we're not monsters," Jack insisted. "The longer we wait, the more time they have to develop weapons against us." Lieutenant Gonzalez developed a plan for a small team to attempt controlled contact again. The mission would include Jack Murphy, Dr. Coleman, and specialists in synopsychology. "We'll approach with complete transparency," Peter explained. "No sudden movements, no threatening gestures." As Earth prepared for second contact, the Kralaxians prepared their defenses, both sides hoping to avoid the mistakes of their first encounter, but neither fully understanding the profound biological differences that separated them. The small Kralaxian scout ship landed in a remote field near Pine Creek, Wyoming. The location was chosen for its distance from major human settlements. 3 Kralaxian scientists and 2 security officers exited the craft, their slender bodies moving cautiously in Earth's stronger gravity. Remember, no contact with humans, Senior Scientist Krell reminded the team. We collect samples and observe from a distance only. The Krelaxians wore protective suits that amplified their strength to cope with Earth's gravity. Even so, they moved slowly, their large eyes scanning nervously for any sign of humans. The atmosphere readings are within acceptable parameters, Junior Scientist Por announced, studying her handheld device. But these radiation levels from their sun would damage our skin without protection. The team spread out to collect soil, plant, and water samples. Security Officer Grimm established a perimeter with sensor drones. This will help us understand how humans evolved such resilience, Krell said, carefully extracting soil cores. Their entire ecosystem might be naturally hostile by our standards. They worked efficiently until Grimm's sensor alerted them to an approaching vehicle. Human transport detected, he warned. 1 mile and closing. Pack up, Krell ordered. Return to the ship. But before they could retreat, Sheriff Olivia Wright's patrol car came into view over the hill. She had received calls about strange lights in the sky and had come to investigate, expecting teenagers or amateur astronomers. What she found instead stopped her in her tracks. Through her windshield, she saw 5 small gray figures in metallic suits beside a silver craft unlike any aircraft she'd ever seen. "Dispatch, you're not going to believe this," she radioed. "But I think I'm looking at extraterrestrials." Sheriff Wright stepped from her vehicle, hands visible and empty of weapons. She moved slowly, remembering the news reports about the failed first contact months earlier. "Hello," she called out. "I'm Sheriff Olivia Wright. I mean you no harm." The Krelaxians froze. Their intelligence reports hadn't prepared them for direct contact, especially with a law enforcement officer. "Defensive positions," Grimm ordered, raising his sonic disruptor. "Wait," Krell cautioned. "Let's not repeat past mistakes." Sheriff Wright continued her approach, maintaining a steady pace and friendly expression. "Are you folks in need of assistance?" she asked, treating them like any lost travelers. Grimm panicked as she came within 20 feet. "She's not stopping," he cried, and fired his weapon. The sonic blast hit Sheriff Wright with an ear-splitting screech. She dropped to one knee, hands covering her ears as blood trickled between her fingers. The pain was excruciating. "Stop firing," Krell shouted, but Grimm discharged a second blast. Despite the assault, Olivia Wright did something that horrified the Krelaxians. She stood back up. Blood running from her ears, balance clearly affected, she nonetheless resumed walking toward them. "I'm not your enemy," she managed to say, her voice strained but determined. Her hand moved slowly to her radio. "Dispatch, send backup." Peaceful approach failed. "It's still advancing," Grimm shrieked. "Nothing stops them." The Krelaxians retreated in panic to their ship, leaving their equipment behind. As the craft rose into the air, they watched the injured human stand her ground, recording their departure with her phone. The incident was captured on Sheriff Wright's body camera. Within hours, footage of her standing up after being hit with alien weapons spread worldwide. She became an instant symbol of human resilience. In hospitals, doctors treated her ruptured eardrums and inner ear damage. "You'll regain most of your hearing," they assured her. "But it will take time." Reporters gathered outside her hospital room. "Were you afraid?" one asked. "Of course," Sheriff Wright replied. "But that's part of the job. You keep going even when you're scared. I just wish they hadn't run off. We need to talk to these beings, not frighten each other." On their ship, the Krelaxian team reported back to their command. The human continued to function after direct sonic assault, Grimm reported, his voice shaking. It kept coming, even while bleeding. The Krelaxian High Command viewed this as confirmation of their worst fears. Earth was now classified as a high-level threat, requiring immediate containment strategies. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Coleman reviewed the Wyoming footage with growing concern. "They're more afraid of us than ever," she told Lieutenant Gonzalez. "We need to make contact soon, before fear drives them to more drastic measures. Dr. Lisa Coleman sat in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic projections of Kralaxian biology. For 3 weeks, she had analyzed every piece of data available: scans from the first contact, footage from Wyoming, and readings from orbital telescopes focused on Kralaxian ships. "I think I've figured it out," she told Lieutenant Gonzalez, who had just entered the lab with coffee for both of them. "The fundamental misunderstanding between our species." She projected a side-by-side comparison of human and Kralaxian cellular structures. "Look at this," Lisa pointed to the Kralaxian cell. "Their entire biology is optimized for efficiency, not resilience. They evolved on a world with 1/3 Earth's gravity and almost no predators." Peter leaned closer to examine the projection. "Their bones look like they're made of something similar to cartilage." "Exactly," Lisa nodded. "Strong enough for their low-gravity environment, but fragile by our standards. And their nervous system is even more revealing." She zoomed in on neural pathways. "Their pain receptors are 3 times more sensitive than ours and cover nearly their entire body. A paper cut would feel like a deep laceration to them. So when they shot Jack and Sheriff Wright, they expected immediate incapacitation because that's what would happen to any Kralaxian." Lisa finished. "What we consider manageable pain would be unbearable agony to them." Lisa had compiled her findings into a comprehensive report titled Comparative Xenobiology: Understanding Kralaxian Perception of Human Resilience. The paper detailed how evolutionary pressures had created 2 intelligent species with radically different relationships to pain and injury. Kralaxians developed their advanced technology precisely because their bodies are so vulnerable, Lisa explained. They automated dangerous tasks early in their evolution. Their fragility drove their innovation. Meanwhile, on the Kralaxian command ship, young scientist Zixt had reached similar conclusions by studying human biology. He presented his findings to the Science Council. "Humans aren't invulnerable," Zixt explained. "They simply experience pain differently than we do. Their bodies evolved to continue functioning despite damage." He showed footage of human medical procedures, athletic competitions, and childbirth. "These activities would kill any Kralaxian instantly," he continued. "But humans have biological adaptations that allow them to endure pain that would be fatal to us. It's not a weapon. It's survival." Many council members remained skeptical. "Even if true," said elder scientist Frax, "a species that can withstand such damage is inherently dangerous. Imagine if they turned hostile." "But our observations show they're primarily peaceful," Zixt countered. "Their resilience developed for survival, not conquest." While scientists debated, Kralaxian military leaders prepared a containment strategy for Earth. They developed satellites capable of releasing compounds into Earth's atmosphere that would specifically target human respiratory systems. "This is a defensive measure only," Commander Draz assured the High Council. "If humans attempt to reach our worlds, we can deploy these deterrents to protect ourselves without causing permanent harm." Back on Earth, Lisa's breakthrough led to a new contact strategy. Working with international authorities, she developed a plan to communicate with the Kralaxians. "We need to show them we understand their concerns," she explained to a panel of world leaders. "We appear terrifying to them, not because of our technology, but because of our basic biology." The plan involved broadcasting detailed explanations of human physiology, along with demonstrations of human vulnerability. The messages showed humans being treated for injuries, recovering from surgery, and using pain medication. "We need to prove we're not invincible," Lisa said. "That we feel pain, that we can be hurt, even though we process it differently than they do." Jack Murphy volunteered to be part of the demonstration. "They've seen me get up after being shot. Now they need to see that I needed weeks of medical treatment afterward." As Earth prepared these messages, surveillance satellites detected increased Kralaxian activity near the Moon. Their ships were positioning for what appeared to be a defensive formation. "We're running out of time," Lieutenant Gonzalez warned. "They're preparing for what they see as an inevitable conflict." "Then we need to reach them now," Lisa said, before fear drives them to make a terrible mistake. Lieutenant Peter Gonzalez stood on the bridge of the U.S. Kennedy, watching Earth grow smaller through the view screen. His small team occupied one small section of the massive aircraft carrier, which had been chosen as the staging ground for humanity's second attempt at contact with the Kralaxians. "All systems ready," reported Naval Officer Gary Fields. "We're broadcasting the contact message on all frequencies." The message, carefully crafted by Dr. Lisa Coleman, explained in simple terms that humans wish to meet peacefully. It suggested neutral coordinates in Earth orbit where both species could safely interact. "Any response?" Peter asked. "Nothing yet," Gary replied, adjusting the communication array. "But they're watching us." Sensors show 3 Kralaxian vessels maintaining position beyond lunar orbit. Jack Murphy entered the bridge, looking considerably healthier than he had after the first contact incident. "I still think I should be the first face they see," he said. "They know me already." "That's precisely why you'll remain on secondary contact," Peter explained. "You're the human they shot who kept advancing. You terrify them." Dr. Coleman joined them, carrying her tablet with the latest simulations. "The key is to move very slowly," she reminded everyone. "No sudden gestures. Keep your voice calm and steady. Remember, what seems normal to us might appear threatening to them." After 3 days of broadcasting, a response finally came. The Kralaxian Council agreed to meet, but with conditions. The meeting would take place at the suggested neutral coordinates. Only 3 humans could attend, and no weapons would be permitted. "They're scared but curious," Lisa observed. "That's a good start." The team selected for direct contact consisted of Peter, Lisa, and Dr. Alan Wilson, an expert in diplomatic relations. Jack would remain on the Kennedy as backup. The meeting point was a small space station hastily assembled in Earth orbit. It consisted of 2 sealed chambers connected by a transparent barrier, allowing both species to see each other without direct physical contact. As their shuttle approached the station, Peter felt his heartbeat quicken. "Remember," Lisa said quietly, "they find our physical appearance intimidating. Our muscle mass, bone structure, even our height seems threatening to them." The 3 humans entered their side of the station wearing simple clothing that revealed no weapons. On the other side of the barrier, 3 Kralaxians appeared. They were smaller than Peter had expected, with large heads and slender bodies that seemed almost childlike. "Greetings," Peter said, moving slowly and keeping his hands visible. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." The translator device conveyed his words to the Kralaxians. The central figure, who wore elaborate decorations on its protective suit, responded. "I am Council Representative Max. We have reviewed your transmissions about human physiology. We wish to understand if the information is accurate." "It is," Lisa confirmed, stepping forward carefully. "Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with many predators. Our bodies developed to withstand injury and continue functioning despite pain. A demonstration would be helpful," Mex suggested. Lisa nodded and turned to Peter. "Lieutenant, would you be willing to demonstrate?" Peter rolled up his sleeve and pinched his arm hard, creating a small bruise. The Kralaxians watched with fascination as he calmly explained the pain he felt without showing distress. "This causes discomfort," Peter explained, "but is not debilitating to humans." Next, he showed a small cut on his finger from an earlier accident. "This is healing naturally. It caused pain initially, but I can function normally despite it." The Kralaxians conferred among themselves, clearly amazed. "Such injuries would immobilize a Kralaxian," Mex admitted. "The pain would be unbearable." "That's why we frightened you," Lisa explained. "What you interpreted as invulnerability is simply a different biological response to injury." For the next several hours, both sides exchanged information about their respective biologies. Lisa showed videos of human medical procedures, explaining how humans manage pain through various techniques. The tension gradually eased as understanding grew. By the end of the meeting, Mex made a surprising request. We would like to study human pain tolerance more closely. Would any of you consent to medical scanning by our equipment? Peter glanced at his teammates, then nodded. I volunteer, with proper safety protocols. This gesture of trust marked the first step toward genuine understanding between the two very different species. The following day, Peter Gonzalez floated in a transparent chamber filled with a bluish liquid. Krillaxian scanning devices surrounded him, their soft humming the only sound in the room. On the other side of a safety barrier, Krillaxian scientists monitored the readings with intense interest. His pain receptors are activating, noted Senior Medical Officer Trix. But his stress hormones remain at baseline levels. The liquid in the chamber was slightly acidic, causing mild discomfort to human skin. To a Krillaxian, it would have been agonizing. Remarkable self-regulation, said young scientist Zix, who had joined the research team. The human nervous system can differentiate between threatening and non-threatening pain. In the adjacent room, Dr. Lisa Coleman watched the proceedings on a monitor. Jack Murphy paced nearby, still uncomfortable with being kept away from direct contact. They're learning that we're not invincible, Lisa explained, just differently adapted. I still don't understand why they're so afraid of us, Jack said. Their technology is far beyond ours. Imagine if you encountered a species that could walk through fire without concern, Lisa suggested. No matter how peaceful they claim to be, wouldn't you worry about what else they could endure? After the scanning session, both sides gathered for a data review. Peter, his skin slightly reddened but otherwise unharmed, joined the human delegation. We have confirmed that humans experience pain, announced Trix. But your nervous systems can suppress pain signals that would incapacitate Krillaxians. It's an evolutionary adaptation, Lisa explained. Earth has many dangers. If minor injuries stopped us completely, we wouldn't survive. As understanding grew between the science teams, news of the successful exchange reached both worlds. The reaction was not universally positive. On the Krillaxian homeworld, military leaders remained suspicious. Scientific curiosity is clouding judgment, Commander Draz argued to the High Council. A species that can endure such physical trauma could withstand our defensive measures. They remain a potential threat. Similarly on Earth, some military analysts viewed Krillaxian fragility as a strategic weakness to be exploited. Their physical vulnerability gives us leverage, suggested one general during a classified briefing. We should consider the tactical advantages. President Caroline Bennett firmly rejected this approach. We will not use biological differences as weapons, she declared. That path leads to conflict, not cooperation. As the scientific exchange continued, Zix became particularly fascinated with human medicine. He spent hours discussing healing techniques with Lisa. Your bodies repair damage that would be fatal to us, Zix marveled. A broken bone in a Krillaxian would require cybernetic replacement. You simply heal. But your neurological capabilities are far beyond ours, Lisa countered. Your brains process information much faster than ours can. This mutual appreciation of differences began to spread. More Krillaxians volunteered for the contact mission, eager to learn about these strange, resilient beings. During the third week of exchanges, an accident occurred that nearly derailed everything. A stabilizer failed in the meeting station, causing a sudden shift in gravity. Several equipment cases toppled over. Without thinking, Jack Murphy, who had finally been allowed to join the meetings, lunged forward to prevent a heavy container from hitting Zix. He caught the container but crashed against the floor, cutting his forehead. The Krillaxians watched in astonishment as blood trickled down Jack's face, yet he simply wiped it away with his sleeve. Are you injured? Zix asked, approaching cautiously. Just a small cut, Jack replied, touching his forehead. I've had worse shaving. Zix studied him with newfound understanding. You acted to protect me despite risk to yourself. Why? Instinct, I guess, Jack shrugged. Wouldn't you do the same for one of us? This simple exchange did more for interspecies relations than weeks of scientific data. The Krillaxians began to see human resilience not as a threat, but as a different kind of strength. Later, Zix approached the High Council with a radical proposal, a formal alliance between Kralaxians and humans. Their physical resilience complements our technological advancement, Zix argued. Together, we could explore the galaxy more effectively than either species alone. The motion faced opposition, particularly from Commander Draz and his supporters, but the seed of cooperation had been planted. Different does not mean dangerous, Zix reminded the Council. It simply means different. 3 months after the initial scientific exchange, Jack Murphy sat nervously in a medical chamber aboard the Kralaxian science vessel Horizon. The room was designed to accommodate human biology, with stronger gravity fields and familiar lighting. The procedure will cause discomfort, Zix explained, adjusting the scanning equipment, but it will provide definitive data on human nervous system responses. I understand, Jack nodded. Let's do it. This final test had been debated extensively by both species. The Kralaxian medical scan would map Jack's entire nervous system in unprecedented detail, but the process would stimulate pain receptors throughout his body. Dr. Lisa Coleman watched from a monitoring station. You can stop the procedure at any time, she reminded Jack through the intercom. I know, Jack smiled, but sometimes you have to endure a little pain to make progress. The scan began. Jack's body tensed as the sensors activated, sending precise electrical pulses through his nervous system. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he maintained his composure, even managing to joke with the Kralaxian technicians. Is this the worst you can do? He asked through gritted teeth. Feels like a bad muscle cramp. The Kralaxians were astounded by his reaction. What their instruments registered as intense pain stimulation produced only controlled discomfort in the human. Commander Draz, who had initially opposed the alliance, observed the procedure with growing respect. Remarkable discipline, he commented. Perhaps we have misjudged these beings. The scan completed after 30 minutes. The results were conclusive. Humans weren't invulnerable. They simply processed pain differently and could function despite sensations that would incapacitate Kralaxians. The data confirms everything, Lisa announced, reviewing the results with the combined science team. Humans feel pain fully, but our nervous systems evolved to allow continued function despite it. Council Representative Mex formally presented the findings to both governments. Our species are different but complementary. Humans provide physical resilience our people lack. We offer technological advancement humans have yet to achieve. Within weeks, the first official alliance between Earth and the Kralaxian Confederation was signed. The agreement established scientific exchanges, trade protocols, and joint exploration missions. The most ambitious project was the creation of a hybrid vessel named Pathfinder, designed to be crewed by both species. The ship combined Kralaxian advanced propulsion technology with human-engineered life support and safety systems. Jack Murphy was selected as the human liaison officer, while Zix became the Kralaxian mission coordinator. Their unlikely friendship symbolized the growing bond between the species. 6 months after the Wyoming incident, the Pathfinder prepared for its maiden voyage, an exploratory mission to a nearby star system. Jack and Zix stood on the observation deck, watching Earth and the Kralaxian ships in orbit. Remember when you shot me? Jack asked with a grin. That was not me personally, Zix corrected, then paused. But yes, I remember our species' unfortunate first impression. Hard to believe we went from that to this. Jack gestured at the ship around them. Our differences initially created fear, Zix noted. Now they form the foundation of our alliance. The Pathfinder's engines hummed to life as final preparations completed. The crew, a mix of humans and Kralaxians, moved with growing comfort around each other, each adapting to the other's needs and limitations. President Bennett delivered a final message to the crew. Today marks not just technological achievement, but biological understanding. We celebrate not despite our differences, but because of them. As the Pathfinder moved away from Earth, Jack thought about the journey that had brought them here, from mistrust to cooperation, from fear to friendship. You know, he said to Zix, On Earth we have a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Zix considered this an interesting perspective. On our world, we say, "What cannot be endured can be understood." Jack laughed. "I think both work pretty well for us now." Together, they watched as the stars stretched before them, no longer separated by biological differences, but united by mutual respect and shared curiosity about the universe waiting to be explored.